And then we've got the information, late on Sunday that Joe Biden has prostate cancer. They said last week President Joe Biden was seen for a new finding of a prostate nodule after experiencing increasing urinary symptoms. On Friday, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer characterized by a Gleason score of 9, grade group 5, with metastasis to the bone. That does not sound good. While this represents a more aggressive form of the disease, the cancer appears to be hormone sensitive, which allows for effective management. The president and his family are reviewing treatment options with his physicians. Look, I don't care what your politics are. I don't care about a lot of things. When you have a deadly disease like cancer, I'm going to pray for you, and I'm going to pray that Joe Biden gets better and beats this. And Mary, I think that I encourage everybody to feel that way. This should never be something anyone celebrates, and I truly wish him well, and I wish his family well. There's far too many people in this country who've had to deal with a cancer diagnosis, and it's absolute hell. It's terrible. And so I'm really wishing Joe Biden the best. And Mary, I think that I'm very hopeful that I see a lot of people do that.
Yeah, you know what? When I first heard about this, my dad has had cancer twice, so it's one of those things that's like really near and dear to my heart. It obviously makes me sad, but then the other feeling I had was it makes me so mad. We're talking about the former president of the United States, and he only just stepped down a couple months ago.
Right.
So where's the medical staff? Like, is this a fast-acting cancer? How long have they known that he's had it? How did they let it get to this stage? Because prostate cancer is very treatable, especially in the early stages. And so, it's just kind of shocking to me. Obviously, it's really sad for his family. I know that, obviously, I disagree with a lot of the things that they've done and the policies that his administration put out. However, I do appreciate how close-knit the family is. And so it's got to be kind of a devastating thing to hear of the patriarch of their family going down kind of like this. So praying for him, hoping that he's doing better. And I hope that the right can show some civility in this moment and show the left like how you're supposed to act when someone gets devastating news like this, and not champion his death like, they would if it was the other way around.
Yeah, it's a great point, Stephanie. That's exactly what I hope we do. Maybe this can be a nice reset for a lot of people. Maybe people who have been calling to 8647 could take a look at this, at people being civil, people being human beings to one another, and say, you know what? Maybe we should take a breath, and maybe we shouldn't wish ill on anybody.
Yeah, as you point out, I would never wish a cancer diagnosis on anyone. That's terrible. And I feel really bad for Biden and his family. But, this isn't going to stop all of these leftists who have turned their backs on Biden right now, like Jake Tapper, who has his book coming out on, May 20th. All of these people who pretended that Biden was perfectly healthy to run for re-election, that there was no issue with his mental and physical decline. All of a sudden, these people are like surprised that there was, and pretending that they were duped by White House officials when we'd been talking about it, Laura, for years. We were concerned for years, and we were called conspiracy theorists. Laura, I recall Jake Tapper in a viral clip from one of his segments telling you, you're not a doctor. How dare you observe something with your own eyes? How dare you insult people with speech issues? And so, it's just so disingenuous and corrupt, if you will. I mean, there was a huge cover up on Biden's health, whether there was huge meetings on it or not, probably not. But all of these people were just so desperate to have him and the left running the White House that they overlooked it all and tried to deceive their viewers.
Yeah. And by the way, imagine, Mary, that Joe Biden had stayed in the race in 2024. Imagine somehow he squeaked out a win in that election. I mean, these people were willing to say for so long that he was okay to be president. I mean, obviously we all were, like Stephanie just said, we were all like, that's crazy because there's clearly something wrong with him. But imagine that. And then imagine he gets this horrific cancer diagnosis right now at the start of his second term in office. That's kind of a scary prospect. And I agree with your point from earlier, which is like, aren't you supposed to have very regular checkups as the president? Aren't you supposed to be able to kind of avoid this sort of thing? I don't know. I think so. But you also have, and one of the things, by the way, in Jake Tapper's book is that a lot of these aides that Biden had worried that if he won the election in 2024, he was going to be in a wheelchair
Yeah.
to serve his second term in office. So I don't know. It's all very upsetting on a lot of different levels. I do feel, and I feel very strongly that no matter what happens, and again, we're going to hope for the best with Joe Biden, there are people who helped push him along when they knew that he should have been done. That these people who lied to the American public, there ought to be some serious repercussions, Mary, for them, because we were in such dangerous territory. It is really terrifying to think of what could have happened. We're lucky it didn't.
Absolutely. I wrote a piece last year. I think it was like in June. It was before he stepped out, so it had to be in like June of last year. And I labeled Jill Biden Lady McBiden. And they talked about this on The View, but at the time, the New York Times clipped that little headline and, called out the Daily Caller for being a right-wing website and, peddling in conspiracy theories and all of that stuff. And everything that I wrote about, all of those opinion pieces where I was like, there's something wrong with Biden. You can clearly see it with your eyes. And Jill is helping cover this up. We were told that, we were lying and that we were just trying to push clicks and all of these things. And
cheap fakes. Remember the cheap fakes? Remember that nonsense?
Yes. And that, I think that was the most, like, the hardest thing for moderate Americans to swallow was that they could see it too. They're not captured by left-wing media, so they don't have to sit there and like gobble the slop that they give them every night. And so whenever you're just a moderate American, you're not really necessarily gung-ho on MAGA, you're not necessarily left-wing, you're right there in the middle and you're watching the president deteriorate in front of your eyes, but then everybody around you is telling you, no, this is normal. Conservatives are just peddling conspiracy theories. I think that's that moment where you're like, no, something's up here. We have to stop this train. And like you said, what a difference it makes to know that we aren't having to deal with that, because God forbid something did happen to Joe Biden, then we're stuck with Kamala Harris without her ever getting a vote from anyone. We're talking about not a vote in the primary, not a vote, he picked her as his vice president. So, that's an even scarier perspective, if I'm being honest, than having Joe Biden in a wheelchair. I don't know that the policies would change very much, but having her talk to other, political leaders in other countries and trying to deal these same things that Trump is doing right now, I don't know where our country it would be. I'm taking a big sigh of relief today.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.